Hey guys, Stefan Voss here, live from Boston. It's always a pleasure. Another great quarter. So this is the Q4 payload, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's coming in 2026. So there's three general chapters that we're going to cover. One is cyber resilience. Then we're going to talk a little bit about cloud to cloud, specifically Microsoft 365. And then we have a little bit of a nugget for continuity, or all things business continuity, disaster recovery as well. So the first part we're going to talk about is cyber resilience, and we have a nice update that we added FIPS 140-3 compliance for servers, workstations, and Microsoft 365. So those of you who are compliance conscious and are requiring that spec, that should be, or that's compliance for that specific encryption module, that should be good news. And the good news also is that you don't have to turn anything on or migrate data. It will just work, and you don't need to rerun the backup. So that's number one. And the second part is an extension of our anomaly detection capabilities. We talked about the honeypot capabilities. So when somebody tries to do a brute force attack at the infrastructure, very likely we will be able to pick that up and then reach out to you, provide it as a service, right? But what about any drift in the configuration or the backup configuration or the backup SLA? So think of a backup SLA or policy as your configuration details. What am I backing up? How often am I backing up? What's included or excluded? And how long am I retaining that, right? And if I have the right credentials, I can change that, which would represent a drift. But it could also potentially compromise you. Just imagine I exclude a whole bunch of stuff from that data source and you don't know about it. That's going to be a real problem when you want to recover. So here the job really is, when that happens, is that we make you aware. You receive an email, and then hopefully it's benign, or you can remediate the problem and get back on track, right? So this is really just all about making sure that the integrity of the backup configuration or the backup SLA remains intact, and then you can choose whether you take action, what type of action you want to take. That's in preview, so really great feature to test and kick the tires on. And that's pretty much it. And now let's move on to the next chapter. Okay, now let's talk about cloud to cloud, or all things Microsoft 365, right? There's a lot of exciting stuff, and it would break it out into like sort of user experience, onboarding, offboarding related things, but also like a little bit of new features. So when we're talking about onboarding, we often bring in a tenant into the scope of Cove data protection, or a domain, as we sometimes refer to it. And we now have introduced this FastTrack onboarding, right? So this makes it a lot quicker to onboard that tenant without waiting for Microsoft data to load. So we see a tremendous adoption of that already. And it just makes that onboarding experience very, very smooth and quick and efficient. So that should be a good sort of enhancements. But the other thing that will help here is group-based data protection. So when we onboard the tenant, we are currently not Entra-ID, organizational unit, or group aware, right? So it's all or nothing, and then you can just select and deselect a couple of users. But wouldn't it be nice if I could just select or deselect from the scope of backup entire organizational units? Because sometimes maybe I don't need everyone to be protected. So this is something that's just around the corner in terms of preview, and will be super helpful if you have larger domains or you don't want to have everything protected. You have that flexibility, and it speaks essentially Entra-ID language, so a language you're familiar with, and allows you to be much more granular, which is nice. So that will help onboarding. Now, there's a couple of other enhancements, specifically performance of Teams and SharePoint backups has been improved dramatically. And the way we're doing that is we're just not backing up things that are not recoverable anyway. So whether that's a permissions related item or whatnot, we skip those, and it's dramatically increased our efficiency and our ability to back up, because there's no point in backing it up if it cannot be restored type thing. And then the last item I will call out, which is more about the scope of backup, is that where we already have the online archives. So we just want to make sure that the backups themselves, as it relates to Microsoft 365, are more complete. And this was a commonly requested capability. So hopefully that will sort of address a lot of the requests and make that overall Microsoft 365 experience a lot more robust. And then last but not least, we have a nice enhancement on the continuity front. We've been on this journey to protect Linux devices in a more robust manner. We added system state backup, or the equivalent of system state backup. Various restore mechanisms ended up in BMR, which is now GA, bare metal recovery. So one of the enhancements now, we have the ability to actually download the rescue media or the VHD image from Azure, which is cool. So we can actually use the cloud to download the rescue media, conduct your BMR, and get back on track. And so you can imagine there's going to be a continuous sort of set of enhancements to just make these types of capabilities better. But it's a nice journey that the team has been on. Now, as we segue into 2026, here's a couple of things that would be top of mind. There's essentially three vectors to our strategy plus what's in the middle. The core is very simple. We need to be efficient. The quality needs to be there. It just needs to work. And so that's not just about having a multi-tenant, easy-to-use UI and a set of APIs that we can understand, but it's also being able to hook this into your ecosystem. And a lot of you are using PSAs, right? When you go in the morning, you want to resolve some issues that include maybe some backup issues. You would expect some tickets to be open, right? So this is a specific integration we will bring to market early next year in a preview with PSA, Halo PSA specifically, and then we will you support others as well, like ConnectWise and Autotask. But this is just a good example how to hook Cove data protection sort of into your overall workflows, right? Ticketing and billing use case, which we already support, right? So hopefully that will make your lives easier. And then we have three vectors. One is cyber resilience, or we can call it data resilience, right? Which is more than just backup, making sure that the backups are secure. We talked about anomaly detection already. And then the third piece beyond honeypots and critical config changes or drift would be the backup data itself. So that's something we plan on introducing. And we will likely make some use of AI pattern recognition just to be able to understand that, there's something that's unusual. We understand what data needs to be moved over the wire anyway, true delta, right? Why not take a look at those statistics and analyze it from the lens of anomalies? The goal is shorten your recovery time. Find a good copy versus a bad copy more quickly so you can save time. So once we have these statistics across these three flavors of anomaly detection, which I believe is pretty comprehensive, why not feed that information into Adlumin, right? Because that is where the experts sit behind the screen. They look at a lot of other stuff as well. So for me, a no-brainer. So look for that support. Very excited about that. So that SIM SOC integration, type integration, we will be pursuing next year. On the continuity side, that's another vector on our strategy. One of the key highlights will be disaster recovery as a service. So think of that as if you lose your site or you have a virtual machine that you want to do a test failover for, and you want a VPN connection into that standby image that's running in our cloud, the enabled cloud, while you figure out how to recover or restore back into production, then this is the solution for you. So the idea is really to make disaster recovery accessible to a lot of our partners, and then also serve those partners who want to shorten their RTOs or not maybe make the investment in the infrastructure, right? Flexibility is king, and that is something that's really something we're super excited about. The last vector is all about sort of workload coverage. We know that the workloads are moving to the cloud mainly, but we have this hybrid model. We do on-premise workloads, cloud-to-cloud workloads, or cloud-native workloads. And one area that we wanted to branch out into is Google Workspace. So Google Workspace is something we will put into preview and then hopefully, of course, GA before the end of the year. And that really allows you as an MSP to standardize if you serve both market segments, right? So otherwise you would need two tools. And in this case, we can standardize on Cove. And it's not going to diminish the value we're going to continue to add for Microsoft 365, but we want to be able to help you standardize on one tool to get the job done. And along those lines, we're also going to start work on Entra ID data protection. I can't commit to a specific date for a preview right next year, but I want you to know that it's on our radar and we are starting to develop and refine. And if you have any specific requirements, please don't hesitate to reach out. We will bring you along for the journey, but it's clear that identity is just very important to be protected. And so that includes, of course, the ability to recover users, groups of users, and potentially the entire Entra ID estate, in case there's a cyber attack. So anyway, exciting year. With that, happy holidays, and I'll see you on the other side.